You know, sometimes life hands you cards you can't ignore, no matter how much you wish you could. That's exactly what happened to me when I decided to come home a day early from a business trip to surprise my wife. A romantic gesture, right? The kind you see in movies. Husband walks in, flowers in hand. Wife gasps with joy, hugs him, and they spend the evening in each other's arms. Yeah, that's not how it went. I pulled into the driveway just after 5 p.m. The house looked quiet, the warm glow of the living room lamp visible through the window. Perfect. I grabbed the bouquet of roses I'd picked up on the way and quietly unlocked the door, grinning at the thought of seeing Ina's reaction. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the comforting kind, but the type that prickles your skin. Then I heard it, a muffled sound from upstairs. A moan. My heart stopped. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe Ina was watching something on TV, or, hell, I don't know, anything but what my gut was screaming at me. But as I climbed the stairs, the noises got louder. Moans, gasps, the unmistakable sounds of pleasure. I reached the bedroom door, which was slightly ajar, and pushed it open just enough to see inside. And there she was, my wife, naked and writhing under some guy I didn't recognize. Their faces were flushed, lost in each other, completely unaware I was standing there. I didn't barge in. I didn't yell. No, I just stood there, my fists clenched so tightly the roses crumpled in my hand. The rage bubbling inside me was cold, sharp, and focused. Without a word, I backed away, walked downstairs, and headed straight for the garage. My hands were steady as I unlocked the gun safe and pulled out my shotgun. I wasn't planning to kill anyone. I'm not a murderer, but I wanted to scare the bastard out of my house and leave no room for excuses. By the time I stormed back upstairs, the sounds had stopped, replaced by hurried shuffling and whispers. He must have heard me coming, because when I kicked open the bedroom door, the guy was already halfway out the window, his pants barely pulled up. I watched him tumble onto the lawn and take off running like a scared rabbit. Ina, meanwhile, sat frozen on the bed, clutching the sheets to her chest, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. "Michael," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I can explain." "Explain?" I cut her off, my voice like ice. "You think there's anything you could possibly say that would make this better?" "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed bitterly, dropping the shotgun onto the floor. "You don't accidentally end up under another man in our bed, Ina. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice." I turned and walked out, ignoring her cries for me to stop. My anger was no longer a fiery explosion. It was a calculated storm. She'd betrayed me, humiliated me, and now she was going to pay for it. By the time I came back into the house, I had trash bags in hand. Ina was still sitting on the bed, sobbing into her hands. "Get up," I barked, and she flinched at the sound of my voice. "Michael, please, let's talk," I said. "Get up," I roared, yanking open her closet and throwing her clothes into the bags. "What are you doing?" she cried, scrambling to her feet. "Getting rid of you," I said coldly. "You've got 5 minutes to get dressed and get out. Anything you leave behind will be on the curb by morning." Ina tried to plead, grabbing at my arm, but I shoved her off. "Don't touch me," I hissed. "You don't get to cry now, not after what you did." She was still begging as I dragged the first bag of her belongings to the front yard and dumped it onto the lawn. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, but I didn't care. Let them see. Let them know what kind of person she really was. "Michael, stop," Ina wailed, running after me. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Not my problem," I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. "You didn't think about that when you brought him into our house, did you?" She collapsed onto the lawn, sobbing into her hands as I slammed the door behind me. For the first time that evening, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I wasn't just going to throw her out of my house. I was going to destroy her life the way she tried to destroy mine. The sound of her sobs filtered through the closed door, but I didn't care. She could cry all night for all I cared. What I was feeling went far beyond anger. It was colder, sharper. a mix of betrayal and disgust that carved its way into my chest like a dull knife. I tossed the now empty trash bag aside and poured myself a drink, my hands steady as steel. This wasn't the time to lose control. No, I needed to think, plan. Ina had crossed a line, and she was going to regret it. Halfway through my scotch, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was Dave, my business partner and closest friend. "Mike," he said as soon as I answered. "What's going on? You left the trip early, and now I'm hearing rumors. Is everything okay?" I laughed bitterly. Define okay. I came home early to surprise my wife and found her screwing some loser in our bed. Silence hung on the other end before Dave finally spoke. "Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, man. What are you going to do? What do you think? She's out of here. I'm already packing her stuff and throwing it on the lawn." "Good," Dave said, his tone firm. "She doesn't deserve another chance after that. But Mike, be smart about this. You've got a lot on the line. Your house, your business. Don't let her drag you into a mess." I downed the rest of my drink. "Don't worry. I've already started locking down everything. She's not getting a dime. Need any help?" "Not yet," I said, setting the empty glass down with a thunk. "But I'll let you know if I do." I spent the next few hours securing my assets. Bank accounts, investments, even the title to the house. By the time I was done, I'd ensured that Ina wouldn't see a cent of anything she didn't absolutely deserve by law, and even that, I'd fight tooth and nail to minimize. As I worked, I thought about the guy she'd been with. His face was burned into my mind. Cheap haircut, cocky smirk, the kind of guy who thought a couple of stolen moments with someone else's wife made him a man. I didn't know his name yet, but that wouldn't last long. After securing my finances, I turned my attention to finding out exactly who he was. I'd seen enough of his face to recognize him, so I scrolled through social media, cross-referencing local connections. It didn't take long to find him. Eric Jensen, 35, freelance graphic designer. Judging by his profile pictures, he fancied himself a ladies' man. Smirking selfies, gym mirror shots, and endless posts about his so-called hustle. I chuckled darkly. This idiot thought he could walk into my life, wreck my home, and walk away unscathed? Not a chance. Outside, Ina was still sitting on the lawn, crumpled into a pathetic heap. I watched her through the window as I called my lawyer. "Mike," Richard said after answering on the second ring. "It's late. What's going on?" "I need to file for divorce." "Now." There was a pause. "You sure you want to move this fast?" "Yes," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "And I want to make sure she gets as little as possible. I'm talking no house, no assets, no savings. I'll need details," Richard said. "Was there infidelity?" "She brought another man into my bed," I replied, the words leaving a sour taste in my mouth. Richard let out a low whistle. "That'll help your case. Do you have proof?" "Not yet, but I will." The next morning, I was up before the sun. Ina was gone, though her belongings still littered the lawn. I didn't care where she'd gone. I was just glad she was out of my sight. I headed to work but couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ina and that scumbag in our bed, laughing at me behind my back. By lunchtime, I decided I'd had enough. I called Dave and told him I needed some time off. "Do what you need to do," he said without hesitation. "We'll hold things down here." "Thanks," I muttered, hanging up. Then I drove straight to a private investigator's office. By the time I got home that afternoon, the investigator had already started digging into Eric. I didn't just want his name. I wanted his life story, who he was, what skeletons he had in his closet, and most importantly, how to break him. The sight of Ina's belongings still scattered across the lawn filled me with grim satisfaction. I didn't pick them up. If she wanted them, she could crawl back and collect them herself. As I stepped inside, I noticed something on the kitchen counter, her phone. She must have forgotten it in the chaos. Curiosity got the better of me, and I unlocked it. We'd never had passwords between us. Big mistake on her part. Her messages were a treasure trove of secrets, but the texts with Eric stood out. "Eric, I'll pick you up tomorrow. Don't worry, babe. We'll figure this out." "Babe?" My jaw clenched. "Ina, Michael is furious. I don't know what he's going to do, but I won't let him ruin me. I smirked, a cold, calculated grin spreading across my face. Oh, Ina, you have no idea what I'm capable of. The longer I stared at Ina's phone, the angrier I became. Her texts with Eric were like reading a bad soap opera. Half-baked plans, reassurances, and enough saccharine nicknames to make me want to hurl. But one thing stood out. They weren't just consoling each other. They were planning something. Eric, you still have access to his accounts, right? Ina, yes. But I have to be careful. If he notices anything, he'll lock me out. Eric, we need to move fast. His business dealings alone could ruin him if we play this right. Ina, I know. Just let me think. I set the phone down, a cold smile creeping across my face. So, they thought they could dig through my life and find something to use against me? They had no idea who they were dealing with. I grabbed my own phone and called Richard, my lawyer. Richard, I said, my voice calm and measured. I've got some new information. My soon-to-be ex-wife and her boy toy are conspiring to access my personal and business accounts. That's ambitious of them, Richard said dryly. Can we use this? I asked. Absolutely, he replied. If they attempt anything illegal, it'll only strengthen your case. But we'll need proof. I'll handle it, I said. As soon as I hung up, I called Dave. Mike, he said when he picked up. What's the update? I need a favor, I said. Can you have IT set up a decoy server? Something juicy enough to lure someone in, but fake enough to trap them? Dave chuckled. Let me guess, Ina and her boyfriend? Exactly. They're fishing for dirt. Let's give them something to find. The rest of the day was a blur of calculated moves. I contacted Jessica, a private investigator I'd used in the past, and filled her in on the situation. Find out everything you can about Eric Jensen, I told her. His finances, his history, anything that looks suspicious. I want leverage. You got it, Jessica said confidently. Next, I went through my own accounts, locking down anything Ina might still have access to. Joint accounts? Frozen. Passwords? Changed. By the time I was done, the only thing Ina could touch was her wardrobe on the lawn. Later that evening, I got an email from Dave. The decoy server was ready, loaded with fake files about Project Avalon, a non-existent initiative involving offshore accounts and confidential dealings. If Ina or Eric took the bait, it would log everything. IP addresses, timestamps, the works. Satisfied, I leaned back in my chair. The trap was set. Now it was just a waiting game. Meanwhile, Ina was busy proving just how predictable she was. I checked the monitoring software I'd installed on her phone. Sure enough, there she was, texting Eric about her next move. Ina, he's locked me out of most things, but I think I still have access to his backup server. Eric, perfect. Let's see what's in there. If we find proof of illegal activity, we can leak it to the press. Ina, I'll log in tonight. Bingo. Around midnight, I got the notification I'd been waiting for. Someone was trying to access the decoy server. I watched in real time as they poked around, downloading files and screenshots. The system logged every move, and by the end of the session, I had everything I needed to prove their intent. Ina and Eric thought they were building a case against me. In reality, they were handing me the ammunition to destroy them. The next morning, I met with Jessica to go over her findings on Eric. You were right, she said, sliding a folder across the table. This guy's a mess. He's got unpaid debts, a history of failed business ventures, and an unregistered offshore account he's been funneling money into. I flipped through the folder, my smirk growing with every page. This is gold, I said. Can we connect him to anything criminal? Not directly, Jessica admitted, but it wouldn't take much to make it look that way. A tip to the right people, and he'll have investigators crawling all over him. Do it, I said without hesitation. By the afternoon, Eric's day had gone from bad to worse. I'd anonymously reported his offshore account to the authorities, and within hours, he was under investigation for financial misconduct. Ina, of course, had no idea what was happening. She was too busy patting herself on the back for hacking into my server. I let her bask in her delusions for a while, but by evening, it was time to strike. I called her from a blocked number. When she picked up, Her voice was tight. Hello? How does it feel to think you're clever, Ina? I said, my voice low and cold. She froze. Michael, did you really think I wouldn't notice you snooping around in my files? I continued. You and your idiot boyfriend walked right into my trap. You're bluffing, she snapped, but I could hear the fear creeping into her voice. Am I? I said, smiling to myself. You'll find out soon enough. Tell Eric to enjoy the fallout from his little offshore account. And as for you, I let the silence hang. You're about to lose a lot more than you bargained for. I hung up, leaving her to stew in her panic. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about dismantling the fantasy she and Eric had built, piece by piece. And I wasn't done yet. By the time the sun rose, my phone was already buzzing with updates. The first was from Jessica, my private investigator. Michael, Eric's in trouble, she said, her tone laced with satisfaction. What kind of trouble? I asked, sipping my coffee. His offshore account flagged a full-scale investigation. The authorities are digging into his finances as we speak. He's on the radar now, and trust me, he's not getting off it any time soon. A smile tugged at my lips. Good. What about Ina? I've got nothing on her yet, Jessica admitted. But if she keeps sticking her neck out for this guy, she'll fall right into the same mess. She will, I said confidently. Keep watching. This isn't over. I ended the call and leaned back in my chair, savoring the small victory. Eric was crumbling, but that was just the appetizer. The main course would be Ina, and I planned to enjoy every bite. Around noon, I got another notification from the decoy server. Someone had accessed it again, probably trying to retrieve more files. This time, I didn't just monitor the activity, I recorded it. Watching the logs in real time, I could practically see Ina and Eric's frustration. They were clicking on everything, downloading file after file, desperate for something they could use. I chuckled. Keep digging, you idiots. Once they logged off, I called Richard, my lawyer. They're at it again, I told him. Perfect, Richard said. This is exactly what we need. With those logs and timestamps, we can prove malicious intent. It'll destroy any chance Ina has at sympathy in court. What's the next step? I asked. We move fast. File the divorce papers with the evidence attached. Once the judge sees this, she'll have no leg to stand on. You'll get the house, the business, and everything else you're asking for. Do it, I said without hesitation. While Richard worked on the legal front, I turned my attention back to Eric. He wasn't just an obstacle. I wanted him obliterated. Jessica's earlier report had given me all the tools I needed, and now it was time to use them. With a few calls and an anonymous email, I leaked Eric's financial misconduct to the press. By that evening, the first article was live. Freelance designer linked to offshore scandal. Authorities investigating unregistered accounts. The fallout was immediate. Eric's social media was flooded with accusations, his reputation dragging through the mud. I pictured him scrolling through the chaos, his smug grin replaced by panic. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat by the window, watching the world outside. My house was quiet now, eerily so, but I welcomed the silence. Ina hadn't come back, and I didn't expect her to. She was too busy scrambling to salvage the mess she created. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was her. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want, Ina? I answered, my voice cold. Michael, please, she said, her tone desperate. We need to talk. Talk? I laughed bitterly. After what you've done. I don't think so. You don't understand, she pleaded. I'm losing everything. Eric, he's in trouble, and now I'm caught in the middle of it. I just want to make this right. You had your chance to make things right, I said sharply. But instead, you chose to lie, to cheat, and to betray me. And now you're reaping the consequences. Michael, I'm sorry, she cried. Please, I'll do anything. Just stop this. I paused, letting her words hang in the air. Then I replied, my tone cold as ice. You'll do anything? Fine. Sign the divorce papers and leave. For good. I can't, she stammered. I have nowhere to go. Not my problem, I snapped. You made your bed, Ina, now lie in it. I hung up, her sobs still ringing in my ears. The next day, I got an update from Richard. The divorce papers are filed, he said. With the evidence we've included, it's a slam dunk. She'll get nothing. No house, no alimony, nothing but the clothes on her back. Good, I said, satisfaction coursing through me. What about Eric? He asked. Already handled, I replied. Ina's downfall came faster than I expected. The morning after I filed the papers, she was served. From what Jessica told me, she didn't take it well. She tried calling you again, Jessica said. She's desperate. She'll stay desperate, I said. By the end of the week, Eric's finances were in shambles, his reputation irreparably damaged. Ina, with no assets to her name, had nowhere to turn. I should have felt some semblance of pity, but all I felt was justice. That evening, as I sat alone in the house I'd fought to keep, I poured myself another drink. The past few weeks had been hell, but the storm was finally over. Ina was gone. Eric was ruined. And me? I was free. Ina's voice echoed in my head long after I hung up on her. Please, Michael, I'll do anything. Those words, that desperation, they should have softened me. Maybe a year ago they would have, but not anymore. I wasn't the man she could manipulate with crocodile tears and empty promises. Not after what she'd done. She'd made her choices, and I was done cleaning up the messes she left behind. The next day, Jessica called with another update. Michael, we've hit another gold mine, she said, her voice buzzing with energy. Turns out Eric wasn't just laundering money. He's also been skimming from his clients. A few of them came forward after the press got hold of the offshore account story. Good, I said, a smirk curling at the corner of my lips. Push it further. Let them know where to file complaints. I want him buried in lawsuits. Already ahead of you, Jessica replied. By the way, I found something interesting about Ina, too. My hand froze over my coffee cup. What kind of something? She and Eric had a joint plan. She wasn't just snooping for dirt on you. She was trying to access your business records. They were hoping to use them as leverage in the divorce, maybe even blackmail you into giving her more than her fair share. I exhaled slowly, anger simmering just below the surface. And you're sure about this? Absolutely, Jessica confirmed. I've got emails, text messages, even timestamps from when they tried to breach your server. That's all I need, I said. Send it to Richard. Let's make sure the court sees every piece of it. The next move was easy. With the evidence Jessica provided, Richard filed an additional motion with the court. Ina wasn't just a cheating wife anymore. She was a co-conspirator in an attempt to sabotage my business. It was a bold strategy on her part, but it was also reckless. And now, it would cost her everything. Meanwhile, Eric's world was imploding. Jessica kept me updated on his situation. Lawsuits were piling up, and the authorities were digging deeper into his accounts. His name was plastered all over the news, each headline more damning than the last. Freelance designer accused of fraudulent practices, offshore scandal deepens. Alleged embezzlement scheme uncovered. I couldn't have scripted it better myself. One night, I got a call from Jessica. You'll want to hear this, she said, and I could hear the amusement in her voice. She forwarded me a recording, a conversation she'd intercepted between Ina and Eric. Ina, Michael's destroyed everything. What do we do now? Eric, we keep fighting. We're not going to let him win. Ina, fighting how? You're broke, and I have nothing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Eric, relax. We'll figure it out. We just need to hit back harder. Ina, there's nothing left to hit with, Eric. I paused the recording, leaning back in my chair with a satisfied smirk. They were cracking under the pressure, and I hadn't even played my last card yet. The next day, I decided it was time to escalate. Using Jessica's intel, I leaked Ina's involvement in Eric's schemes to the press. The headline was brutal. Ex-wife of business mogul linked to fraud scandal. Evidence of conspiracy emerges. By evening, my phone was blowing up. Friends, colleagues, even a few distant family members, all asking if the story was true. It's unfortunate, I told them, feigning regret, but it seems Ina made some poor decisions after our separation. I just hope she finds a way to take responsibility for her actions. The narrative was spinning perfectly. Ina was no longer a scorned wife. She was a complicit schemer who had tried, and failed, to take down her husband. The fallout hit her hard. Jessica called a few days later with the update I'd been waiting for. She's living out of a motel now, Jessica said. No job, no money, and from what I hear, her family isn't helping her either. Apparently, they're furious about the scandal. I nodded, satisfaction settling in my chest. Eric? I asked. Worse, Jessica replied. He's facing bankruptcy and possible jail time. His clients aren't letting up, and the authorities are closing in. Good, I said simply. Ina tried to call me again that evening, but I let it ring. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, she showed up at the house. I saw her through the window, disheveled, desperate, and holding what looked like a stack of papers. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. What do you want, Ina? I asked coldly. I came to talk, she said, her voice trembling. Please, Michael, can't we just stop this? I'll sign the papers. I'll leave. Just stop destroying me. I studied her for a moment, weighing her words. She looked like a shell of the woman I used to know. Broken, defeated. You did this to yourself, I said finally. But if you're ready to sign, we can end this. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I handed her the papers, watching as she signed each page with shaking hands. When she was done, I took the papers and stepped back inside. Goodbye, Ina. And with that, I closed the door. That evening, I sat by the window with a glass of scotch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The battle was over, and I'd won. Ina was gone. Eric was ruined. And me? I'd rebuilt my life from the ashes they tried to leave me in. Justice had never tasted so sweet. It felt strange, waking up the morning after Ina signed the papers. For the first time in weeks, my house was silent. No drama, no shouting, no schemes brewing just outside my door. I should have felt relief, but all I could feel was exhaustion. The war was over, and I'd won. I kept the house, the business, and everything that mattered. Ina was out of my life, and Eric was drowning under the weight of his own bad decisions. But even with all that satisfaction, there was a hollowness that wouldn't go away. As I poured my morning coffee, my phone buzzed. It was Jessica. Morning, Michael, she greeted. Got some news for you. I grunted, not ready for anything resembling drama. What is it now? Ina left town last night. Checked out of the motel, no forwarding address. She's gone. I let her words hang in the air, unsure how to feel. Gone? I repeated. Looks like it, Jessica confirmed. My guess? She's running from everything. Eric's mess, her family's anger, your lawsuit, too much heat. I sipped my coffee, a grim smile tugging at my lips. She always did like to run when things got tough. She's not your problem anymore, Jessica said. And Eric? Well, he's got problems of his own. Anything new there? I asked, leaning against the counter. Jessica chuckled. Oh, plenty. His offshore account's been frozen, and his creditors are circling like vultures. He's burned every bridge he had. Last I heard, he's trying to sell his car just to pay rent. That brought a real smile to my face. Good. Let him rot. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. The house felt different without Ina's presence, calmer, more mine. I spent the day clearing out the last remnants of her existence. A forgotten scarf in the closet, an old notebook stuffed into a drawer. Each item I tossed into the trash felt like shedding dead weight. By the end of the day, I stood in the middle of my now spotless home, feeling lighter than I had in years. A few days later, Richard called with an update. Michael, the court finalized the divorce, he said. You're officially a free man. Ina walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back, just like you wanted. And the lawsuit? I asked. She's barred from coming after your business or your personal assets, Richard confirmed. It's airtight. She won't be able to touch you. Perfect, I said. Richard hesitated. You did well, Michael. Most people would have crumbled under the pressure, but you held strong. I smirked, though he couldn't see it. Thanks, Richard. But I didn't just hold strong. I made sure they couldn't come back. Despite my victory, the damage they'd done still lingered. People talked, whispered about the scandal surrounding my marriage. Even though the evidence painted Ina and Eric as the villains, I couldn't escape the looks of pity or curiosity from those around me. At work, my employees treaded carefully, avoiding any mention of my personal life. It was both a blessing and a curse. Dave, my business partner, was the only one who brought it up. "You've got nothing to be ashamed of, Mike," he said one afternoon. "Ina played you, but you didn't let her win. That's what matters." "I know," I replied, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. "Don't let this define you," Dave added. "You've built something solid here. Focus on that. Let the rest fade." It took weeks, but eventually, things started to feel normal again. I threw myself into work, rebuilding the pieces Ina had tried to break. The business thrived, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had control over my life again. But there were moments, quiet ones, late at night, when I thought about her. Not with longing or love, but with a cold sense of detachment. She had been a part of my life for so long, and now she was just gone. Part of me wondered if she'd try to come back someday, begging for forgiveness. The thought didn't bring anger or fear. It brought pity, because no matter what she did, Ina would always be running. From her mistakes, from the mess she'd made, and from me. One evening, I got a text from Jessica. "Jessica, Eric's officially bankrupt. His landlord evicted him. Word is he's crashing on someone's couch now. Thought you'd like to know." I laughed, shaking my head. The man who thought he could steal my wife and ruin my life was now homeless. Karma had done its job. As I sat on my back porch that night, the cool breeze brushing against my face, I thought about everything I'd been through. The betrayal, the anger, the chaos. It was all behind me now. The life I had with Ina was over, and I was okay with that. I raised my glass to the stars, a quiet toast to the future. "To freedom," I muttered, a small smile playing on my lips. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace.